In this video, I'll give you a quick review of the Mercedes EQB. I'll DC fast charge it and I'll test if it's built properly. When Mercedes launched the EQB back in 2022, it was pretty clear that this is actually just an electric version of the already launched GLB that's been on the market since 2020. Well, there's a few small differences as you just watch the cars. First of all, the closed grille, the LED strip between the headlights and the LED strip between the taillights. And also the EQB, it's not able to get a tow hitch. This car has the optioned AMG package, which make it look rather good, I think. But the cabin in this car is basically all the same as a GLB. It leaves a pretty good Mercedes Benz feeling, although a few places, well, it maybe falls a little through, if you can say it in that way. Nice materials here, a little scratchy plastic down here, which is a pity. The EQB is built on the same platform as the GLB. That platform is called MFA2, and that's of course therefore not a dedicated EV platform. That can usually be seen on the space in the cabin as well as maybe the efficiency of the EV. Well, in this car's case it's actually okay. On paper the efficiency of this car is as an ID.4. In the two-wheel drive versions, it's approximately 165 watt-hours per kilometer, and the four-wheel drive versions are approximately 185 watt-hours per kilometer. So, actually pretty okay.
An EQB is available in 4 variants. 2 front-wheel drive versions, that's the 250 and 250 plus. They both put out 140 kilowatts. That's equivalent to 190 horsepower, but there's one decisive difference. The 250 Plus has a larger battery than the 3 other models. I'll return to that. The 300 and the 350 models has the nickname 4Matic, and that's Mercedes lingo for all-wheel drive. They put out 168 and 250 kilowatts, equivalent to 228 and 292 horsepower. The car in this video is the top version, the 350, which sprints from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 6.2 seconds. But that's the version I will not recommend you buying. In Denmark, an EQB also always comes with a heat pump, always 11 kilowatt AC charging on 3 phases, and always a decent DC charging. I'll get back to that later in the video. An EQB has a reasonable luggage compartment, an okay space on the adjustable rear seats, although with a slightly high bottom, which actually also camouflages the transmission tunnel just a little bit. Although the GLB and EQBs are almost the same car built on the same platform, they're built different places. The EQBs are built in Hungary unless they're for the Chinese market where they build the cars themselves. The GLBs are always built in Mexico on a joint venture factory between Mercedes and Nissan. Unfortunately, the GLB has no frunk, no estimated state of charge and navigation, but can precondition the battery before DC fast charging. You can option for 7 seats in the EQB as one of few EVs, although it's not that spacey on the 3rd row.
Well, let's talk a little about how the EQB rides. It's set up for comfort 100%. And that's actually why I won't recommend you buying the 350 model, the car I'm driving right now. It's almost 300 horsepower, but yeah, in practice, you won't use it because it's a cruiser. Actually, I made an acceleration test of the car, and yeah, you can see the results right here.
Wow, den trækker meget godt. Men den kan simpelthen ikke forbide. Forhjulene, de roterer.
This car is the 350 4Matic 4-wheel drive, and that means that it has a permanent magnet motor in the rear and an induction motor in the front. And that's actually a very clever way to do it, because the permanent magnet motor is the most efficient motor, but also requires electricity to spin. If there's no electricity, the motor will basically lock. And then you use the induction motor instead. There are no permanent magnets. If there's no electricity, it actually just spins and there's nearly no resistance. So that's pretty clever. Other cars, when they use permanent magnet motors on both the rear and the front axle, actually now in time they start putting clutches in the front motor, for example, or the rear motor, one of the motors, to decouple the motor from the wheels when you're just cruising. Let's talk a bit battery sizes, because the 200, the 300 and the 350 all have the same battery. The battery size is 66.5 kilowatt hours net capacity, and the total capacity is 69.7 kilowatt hours. Whereas the 250 plus model, the front wheel drive version with high efficiency, has also a larger battery. That battery is 70.5 kilowatt hours net capacity and 73.9 kilowatt hours total capacity. Another thing about the car here, the recuperation you can adjust with these flappy pedals behind the steering wheel, which is actually pretty great. What's not so great is that although you have a lot of recuperation, a lot of energy going back to the battery, a lot of deceleration, it doesn't decelerate all the way to a halt. So you don't get the full one-pedal driving experience. I'd also like to talk a little about the assisting systems, the driving aids. They're really great in the Mercedes. Normally I say that the MEB cars, that's the Volkswagen ID, the ID cars, the IV from Skoda and the Audi Q4 e-tron, for example, they have really good driving aids, this assisting systems, but they're actually better in the Mercedes. The automatic steering keeps you centered in your lane and doesn't interrupt your driving. It's really pleasant to drive with. Another thing is the adaptive cruise control, which nicely keeps a distance to the car in front of you. Although if you go to a halt, for example inside town, you'll have to either use the accelerator or a button on the steering wheel to engage and go forward again. But the best thing about the assisting systems is that it can automatically adjust the car speed according to the speed limits, and it actually does it almost flawless, perfect every time, and it also does it before you enter a new speed zone that's lower than the one you're driving at now. For example, if you're going into town, well, it's reducing the speed, so when you pass the city limit, the car's already just hit the correct speed. That's pretty great, really good. I also did a noise test with this car, both at 80 kilometers an hour, that's at country roads, and at 130 kilometers an hour in motorway speeds. And what it actually showed is that this car, it did approximately 62 dBs on country roads and approximately 68, 69 dBs on motorway speeds. And that's a couple of dBs louder than, for example, a car like an Ioniq 5 or a Skoda Enyaq. But also, it only has single layer windows all the way around. Lots of these new cars on the market, the new EVs, have double layer glass all the way around. Of course, it's no secret, I'm a Danish YouTuber. This video is actually just a translated version of my Danish video. And in my Danish video, I also did a DC fast charging test of this car. The car is claimed by Mercedes to peak at 100 kilowatts, which is actually not anything special now. But it's also claimed to charge from 10 to 80% in just over 30 minutes. And how I did that, you can watch right here. Yeah, it's pretty windy today. Right now I'm at a DC charging station at the airport near where I live. And I'm gonna check out how this EQB 350 4Matic is gonna charge from 10 to 80%. That's a pretty crazy charging curve. It kept like, yeah, it was like flat all the way to approximately 70% and actually all the way to 80% still very, very good. That's pretty impressive, but of course you could always ask for more. If it kept a charging curve on 125 or 150 kilowatts, yeah, it would be better. Another thing I usually do in my Danish videos is also drive the car on cobblestone. The city of Varde, where I live, is a very old city, and there's a lot of nice old cobblestone roads, but they're also pretty uneven. And if you drive the cars, you pretty fast find out if the car is put together in a good way. And also the cobblestone test, yeah, this car passed it just great. Perfect. Now I've been driving the EQB for a week, and what do I think about this car? Yeah, actually I like it a lot, but there's also a part of me that wishes for a little bit more. First of all, you know, the cabin materials, they're pretty good all the way around, and then still, yeah, somewhere you find what I call scratchy plastic. And it's actually just a pity, because I don't believe that it would cost that much more and then do a real Mercedes interior. Well, the rest is pretty nice, and it's definitely over the mediocre cars, so yeah, I can live with it. Another thing is that it's also pretty costly, because this car, although when you check it out on the Mercedes website, it looks pretty okay set on the price. But if you want a nice EQB, you'll have to put in actually a few extras, and then the price starts to rise a lot. I'll also say another thing. I don't think that this is an exciting EV as the EQE and the EQS, for example. Those little details, as you don't get estimated state of charge, at least not at the time here of February 2023, well, I drive this car, and I think that's a pity, because that's some of those things that just make an EV so much better on the long journeys. Another thing, you don't get state of charge in percent in your screen right in front of you. You can find it here on the infotainment screen in some menu deep below, but yeah, Mercedes, it just has to be right in front of the driver all the time. I'd like also to talk a little bit about my consumption in this week I've been driving this car. I've been driving, well, quite a lot of short commuting, and yeah, the car uses a lot of energy to heat up the cabin, stuff like that, and I ended up with an efficiency of approximately 250 watt hours per kilometer, and that's not particularly good. But, well, in normal daily driving, you can just plug in at home and yeah, you're good to go the next day again. It would give me a range of approximately 266 kilometers on a full charge. I also drove the car at constantly 130 kilometers an hour on the motorway, and that was actually pretty okay. I had a consumption of 295 watt hours per kilometer, and that's equivalent to a range of approximately 225 kilometers. And I drove this car at a little over 0 degrees Celsius all this week of late January, early February 2023. So that's actually okay. If you like this video, please feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Maybe see you some other time. Bye.